Do you remember a silence so complete you could almost hear it breathing? The kind that filled a classroom before a single word was spoken. Shoes echoed along polished floors, chairs scraped once, then never again, and rows of desks sat perfectly still. Back then, quiet wasn't just encouraged, it was expected, learned, and obeyed without question. Even a cough felt loud. Today, classrooms hum with conversation and movement, but in those days, silence ruled the room. It makes you wonder why it mattered so much, and what that quiet was really teaching us, and who we became afterwards inside. To understand those silent classrooms, we have to step back into a country still finding its feet. Britain in the early post-war years was rebuilding brick by brick, habit by habit. Order mattered. Routine mattered. People believed stability came from knowing your place and doing your duty well. Schools reflected that belief perfectly. They were not just places to learn sums and spelling, but workshops for character, shaping children into dependable adults. In those classrooms, authority was clear and rarely questioned. Teachers stood at the front as figures of certainty in an uncertain world. Rules were simple, firm, and ever-present. Sit straight, listen carefully. Speak only when invited. For many families, this structure felt reassuring. A promise that their children would grow up respectful, reliable, and ready for working life. Today, education encourages curiosity, discussion, and confidence. Back then, it encouraged restraint. Expression came later, if at all, yet at the time, it felt normal, even necessary. That shared belief explains why silence became such a powerful tool, shaping not just lessons but the atmosphere children carried with them each day. It was a mindset passed quietly from classroom to home, shaping expectations without anyone stopping to question it. Long before anyone explained the rules, you already knew them. They were written in the air, learned through glances, pauses, and the careful way others behaved. You sat with hands folded, eyes forward, feet tucked neatly beneath the desk. You spoke only when your name was called, and even then, softly. Children learned quickly that stillness brought approval, while curiosity was something to be managed quietly inside. Much of the learning happened without a single word being said. You watched older pupils, copied their movements, sensed when to keep your head down. A raised eyebrow or a slow walk down the aisle told you everything you needed to know. Books taught reading and numbers, but the room itself taught caution, patience, and awareness. Today, classrooms invite questions and conversation. Back then, observation was the lesson. Most people forget how much children learned simply by watching, absorbing rules never written on the board, and that silent understanding shaped every moment that followed long after the bell rang and lessons officially ended. Authority in those classrooms didn't need shouting. It arrived quietly, carried by presence alone. Teachers stood tall at the front, chalk tapping softly, paper rustling as pages turned in unison. A pause mid-sentence could still a room faster than any command. You waited to be noticed, heart beating a little louder than the silence allowed. Respect was woven into everyday life then, and school mirrored the wider world outside its doors. Adults were figures to be listened to, not debated. Questions were permitted, but only at the right moment, in the right tone. A raised eyebrow could redirect a wandering gaze. A slow step between desks restored perfect order. Today, authority often explains itself. Back then, it simply existed. Children learned to read mood and movement as carefully as words on a page. That constant awareness trained attentiveness, but it also taught caution. You learned when to speak, when to wait, and when it was safer to blend into the background. Those watchful eyes followed pupils through each lesson, shaping behavior. When silence became safety, children learned a different kind of lesson. Keeping quiet was not just polite, it was practical. Silence helped you blend in, pass through the day unnoticed, and avoid standing out. Many pupils discovered that watching was safer than speaking, listening easier than questioning. Over time, this habit settled in. You learned to read the room, sense moods, and measure words carefully before letting them escape. Some children thrived as observers, storing thoughts away like notebooks kept tidy. Others carried unanswered questions home, never daring to raise them aloud. Today, we encourage children to share opinions and find their voices early. Back then, restraint was praised, and quietness felt like protection. It leaves us wondering how many voices stayed silent simply because that was what was expected, and how many of those quiet habits followed people into adult life, shaping confidence, caution, and the way they spoke to the world, long after classrooms faded from memory entirely. The truth is, those classrooms shaped children in very different ways. Some found comfort in structure, enjoying clear rules and knowing exactly where they stood. They did well, pleased adults, and carried that discipline proudly through life. But others remember something quieter. Questions swallowed. Laughter softened. Imagination carefully folded away like a book never opened in class. You might recognize yourself here, or a friend who always kept their head down. Perhaps a sibling who spoke freely at home, yet barely at school. These were not unhappy children, just careful ones, learning early how to fit the shape expected of them. There is no blame in remembering this, only understanding. Those silent classrooms left marks both visible and hidden, shaping confidence, caution, and kindness in equal measure. By looking back with empathy, we see real children navigating small worlds, one quiet day at a time, long after lessons had ended. Classrooms today sound very different. Voices overlap, ideas are shared, and children are encouraged to be seen as well as heard. It's a world away from the careful quiet of the past. Yet something remains worth reflecting on. Those silent rooms shaped patience, observation, and resilience, even as they asked some voices to wait. Looking back, we can ask what was gained, what was lost, and how it all made us who we are. Those classrooms may be gone, but the echoes are still with us. For more of these unbelievable memories, tap the video on your screen. The 1970s stories are something else. Don't forget to subscribe.